Rain came in sideways off the bay, needling the windshield of Trey Walsh's old kennel van and turning the Marina Access Road into black glass. Midnight was usually his quiet hour, the one strip of time when sleep had already lost and dawn hadn't started making demands. He used it for work that made sense. One handler, one dog, one track, one outcome. Mako. Zoek. The Belgian Malinois dropped his nose, muscles tight and fluid under a soaked tactical vest, and worked the scent line Trey had laid between stacked crab traps and a rusted fuel drum. Trey followed on a loose lead, boots cutting water, shoulder aching where old shrapnel still liked to remind him what weather was doing. Retired SEAL chief, people said, like the word retired meant done. Nothing about him looked done. He still moved with command in his spine and threat assessment in his eyes, and he still slept in 2-hour fragments unless exhaustion pinned him hard enough to blackout. The county scanner crackled from the van console, a burst of static, then dispatch trying to sound calm and failing. Be advised, Bolo black Cadillac Escalade, possible involvement in 10 to 50 with critical injuries near Bay Haven docks. Last seen eastbound, now believed northbound toward county line. Trey glanced at the green digits on the dash clock. 047. Another voice cut in, lower, clipped. All units hold position pending supervisor direction. He frowned. Hold position on a violent hit and run. He keyed volume higher. Repeat, all units hold. Do not engage until notified. Mako's ears twitched at the radio tone. Trey watched the dark mouth of the road where it met Highway 98. Rain pounded harder. Somewhere out on the water, a halyard clanged against aluminum like a distant alarm bell. Then headlights exploded around the bend. The black Escalade came in too hot, hydroplaned, corrected, and fishtailed across both lanes. It clipped a portable barricade someone had set near a storm washout and sprayed orange plastic into the ditch. Through the strobing rain and his own beam light, Trey got a hard, ugly snapshot inside. 3 young men, maybe early 20s, expensive haircuts, drunk with speed and certainty. The one in the passenger seat leaned half out the window, screaming into the storm, laughter tearing through his words. My father owns this town. They roared past, engine snarling. Mako lunged once, a trained check against movement, then settled at Trey's knee when Trey gave the heel command. Half a mile up the road, red-blue lights flashed. A county deputy SUV sat angled in the median, blocking nothing. The Escalade slowed just enough for Trey to see the deputy step out into rain, one hand up. Then his phone lit his face. He listened. His posture changed, shoulders dropping, certainty draining. He glanced at the Escalade. He stepped back. He waved them through. No citation, no stop, no pursuit. Just rain, taillights, and obedience to someone not wearing a badge in that moment. Trey stood perfectly still while the SUV disappeared north toward the Alabama line. In his chest, an old operational instinct clicked over from observation to pattern. Bay Haven had always been a town of polished facades, marinas, resort lots, hospital charity galas, ribbon cuttings. Tonight he saw the wiring under the paint. Chain of command ran through money, surnames, and fear, and law enforcement was somewhere downstream. Load up, he told Mako. He drove back to his kennel lot on the edge of town. Wipers slapping. Scanner now full of routine calls, pointedly, not mentioning the Escalade. The lot was fenced and lit by 2 flickering sodium lamps, with 6 runs, a cinder block feed room, and a converted shipping container he used as office and bunk. It wasn't pretty, but it was his, built after retirement contracts and odd training jobs, one invoice at a time. He towel-dried Mako under the awning, checked paws for cuts, then stripped off his soaked shell and sat on the bunk with a cup of coffee he didn't need. Rain drummed the roof in military cadence. He should have filed the night under "not my problem" and moved on. That was the local rule for surviving Bayhaven. Don't stare too long at what everyone else ignores. At 3:19, Mako went from resting to rigid in under a second. No bark. Just alert. Head high, nostrils working toward the back fence. Trey set down the cup, pulled on boots, and reached for a flashlight. "Show me." Mako led him behind the runs to the drainage ditch that fed into a concrete culvert under the service road. The beam caught wet weeds, trash, runoff, and then a hand, small, shaking. "Hey," Trey said, voice low and flat. "You're okay. I'm coming in." He slid down the embankment and found a young woman curled against the culvert wall. Scrubs torn at one knee, one side of her face swollen and split. Blood and rainwater had matted her dark hair to her cheek. She flinched hard when he touched her shoulder. "No police," she rasped. "Please, not Bayhaven PD." "You're hurt. They'll send me back." He took his hand away so she could see he was listening. "Name?" "Rosa? Rosa Delgado." Her breath hitched. "Nursing student? Bayhaven Regional?" Trey felt Mako's warm flank at his back, steady and present. "Who did this to you, Rosa?" She swallowed, eyes darting toward the road like headlights might appear just for saying the words. "Camden Rourke, Eli Mercer, Nolan Briggs, at the docks. They hit a man with a SUV and didn't stop. He went over the barrier by slip 12. Her voice cracked. "I started recording. Camden saw me. They grabbed me, took my phone, beat me in the parking lot." The storm seemed to hush around that sentence. "They loaded the dock worker in the back," she said. "He was breathing. I heard him trying to breathe. They said if he made it to a hospital, everything burns. So they dumped him by the old fuel tanks. Like trash." Trey's jaw tightened so hard it hurt. The laughing faces in the Escalade snapped into focus, with names attached now. He took off his jacket and wrapped it around her shoulders. "Can you stand?" "With help?" He got her up carefully, half-carried her to the van and settled her in the passenger seat with a thermal blanket. Mako jumped into the back crate on command, whining once. Trey drove for Bayhaven Regional with hazard lights cutting through rain and a pressure growing behind his sternum he recognized from deployments. The second before an operation turns political, and everybody pretends it's still tactical. Emergency intake was bright, over-air-conditioned, and smelled of sanitizer over old coffee. A triage nurse took one look at Rosa and called for a wheelchair. Trey stayed close until a man in a white coat crossed the floor with practiced authority and a donor wall smile. Dr. Mercer, Bayhaven Regional's hospital director, and Eli Mercer's father extended a dry hand Trey didn't take. "I'm the hospital director, overseeing night operations. What happened?" Rosa recoiled at his voice. "Assault," Trey said. "Possible witness in a felony hit and run." Mercer's expression didn't move. "Of course. We'll handle it." He crouched by Rosa, voice syrup smooth. "Rosa, honey, do you know where you are?" She stared at him and said nothing. Mercer looked up at a nurse. "Likely acute confusion. Possible substance interaction. Let's keep stimuli minimal." "No," Rosa whispered, panic rising. "No tox screen. He'll—" Mercer cut her off with a gentle hand in the air. "You're safe. Let us do our jobs." Trey stepped forward. "Run toxicology, full panel, and get an external examiner." Mercer stood. "Mr. Walsh, this is a hospital, not a courtroom." "Good. Then act like one," Trey said. "Preserve evidence." For a beat, Mercer's mask slipped, not anger, annoyance, as if Trey were a scheduling problem. "We appreciate your concern," Mercer said. "Security will escort you to the waiting area." Two private security men materialized from a side hall before Trey could answer. Not hospital orderlies. Former military posture, earpieces, hands near jackets. Mercer gave them a tiny nod and disappeared with Rosa through a badge-locked door. Trey stayed 3 hours in a molded plastic chair under fluorescent lights, making calls that went nowhere. Bayhaven PD transferred him twice, then dropped. The county tip line thanked him and promised follow-up. Dawn came gray and wet through the lobby glass. At 6:41, Rosa's room number vanished from the patient board. He caught the same triage nurse by the station. Where'd they move, Delgado? She checked, frowned, checked again. She's not on my census. What does that mean? It means I don't have access. He found a lieutenant badge and got stonewalled with policy language that sounded rehearsed. No patient by that name currently under this department. Trey walked out before he said something that would get him cuffed for disorderly. In the parking deck, he sat in the van, put both hands on the wheel, and forced his breathing down to baseline. Mako put his nose between the seats and touched Trey's shoulder once. Yeah, Trey muttered. I know. He drove back to the Marina Road and pulled his dash cam card, then parked outside a bait shop with a decent signal to upload the footage. Time-stamped Escalade, visible plates, deputy wave-off. The progress bar hit 92%, froze, then threw an error. Server connection lost. He retried. File not found. He checked local storage. Empty folder. His phone buzzed. Unknown number. Nice upload, Chief. Another buzz. Unknown number 1418. Anchorline Road, Sleep Light. A third came with no text, just an image. A screenshot of his military service record header. Under it, one line in block capitals. How's Breacher Kane sleeping? Trey stared at the name until the edges of the screen blurred for a second. Kane had died 5 years ago, officially overdose, unofficially question marks and closed doors. Only a small circle even knew they'd served together. This wasn't random intimidation. Someone with reach was reading from a file drawer that should never have opened. He drove to the sheriff's substation anyway. The desk deputy, eyes bloodshot and uneasy, listened with the attention of a man trapped between his oath and his mortgage. He took screenshots. He did not type a report number. You got kids? Trey asked finally. The deputy looked past him at the wall clock. Mr. Walsh, go home. Let this cool off. Woman got snatched out of a hospital. Go home. Outside, rain finally broke into a low mist. Bayhaven woke up around him. Delivery trucks, joggers, school drop-offs. All of it normal enough to make him feel briefly crazy. He turned on the local morning news in the van. A smiling anchor introduced exclusive body cam footage of an agitated former military contractor confronting medical staff. Clip roll. Trey in the ER hallway, cropped tight to his raised voice. None of Mercer, none of Rosa, none of context. Lower Third Chiron read community concerns after veteran outburst. He laughed once, a dry sound with no humor in it. By noon, his county volunteer K-9 credentials were temporarily suspended pending behavioral review. The email came from an admin account he'd never seen before. He went back to the kennel, checked locks, topped fuel cans, moved Mako's crate away from exterior walls. Every action was deliberate, almost calm, the way he used to prep gear before missions, where no one said out loud how likely they were to go sideways. Neutrality had been his truce with Bayhaven. Train dogs, mind your lane, keep your ghost to yourself. It was gone now. A nursing student had crawled bleeding into his drainage ditch because she knew the town better than he wanted to admit. If he stepped back, she disappeared cleanly into whatever basement system. Mercer and the Rourkes used for problems. The dock workers stayed unnamed. The deputy kept waving cars through for phone voices. And whoever texted him Kane's name learned that threatening veterans worked. At 1407, his burner line rang, a number only 3 people had. "Walsh," he answered. A pause, then an old teammate's gravel voice from another life. "Heard noise down your way. You in it?" Trey looked at Mako lying by the door, eyes open, waiting for command. "Yeah," Trey said. "I'm in it." He ended the call, rose, and checked the pistol, safe out of habit he hoped not to need. Outside, the clouds thickened again over the state line. In Bayhaven, men with inherited power were making plans for nightfall, confident the map would protect them if they could just cross the right border. Trey clipped Mako's lead, feeling the dog's energy gather through the line like a current. "Let's go to work," he said. "Let's go to work," he said. Mako hit the ground already keyed up, claws clicking once on concrete before Trey guided him toward the van. Trey didn't bother with sirens he didn't have or permission he wouldn't get. He drove back toward Bayhaven Regional with the burner phone in his pocket and a hard plan assembling in layers. Verify movement, find transfer point, follow scent before heat and traffic killed it. The rain had tapered into a warm mist that left everything smelling like salt and diesel. Hospital security had shifted by then, different faces at the front loop, same posture. Trey didn't approach the main entrance. He parked behind a linen service truck across from the loading dock and waited 5 minutes, reading routines. 2 orderlies smoking by the dumpster, a dietary cart in and out. 1 camera dome above the dock door, another over the compactor lane, with a blind wedge between them where the wall jutted. He took a gallon zip bag from under the seat. Inside was the thermal blanket Rosa had used in the van, now dried stiff in places with blood and rain grime. Mako's ears flicked forward the second Trey cracked the seal. "Find Rosa." "Zoik." Mako inhaled, circled once to settle, then lowered into track posture, and moved along the perimeter fence. Trey kept the line loose and stayed in the blind wedge, using parked box trucks for cover. Mako ignored food trash, ignored a passing nurse on break, ignored the loading dock itself and drove past it, to a side gate where ambulance crews usually cut through. He stopped at the concrete, nose working a tight pattern around a faint dark stain near a drain. Blood. Cleaned, but not enough. Beyond the gate, the scent line drifted across asphalt to the ambulance bay. Not to a marked county unit, but to the faded rectangle where private transport rigs staged. Trey crouched, touched the pavement, then looked up at a camera mount with fresh zip ties and no camera. Someone had removed it recently. He photographed the bay, stain, and mount, then followed Mako another 40 yards to a service alley where tire tracks had chewed mud over the curb and back out. One tread pattern was aggressive off-road, expensive and wide. Trey snapped that too. A voice behind him said, "You can't be back here." He turned. The same triage nurse from dawn stood in scrubs under a disposable poncho, badge half hidden. Up close, he saw she was younger than he'd thought, maybe 26, eyes ringed with fatigue. "I'm not asking you to talk," Trey said. She swallowed anyway and glanced toward the dock. "They changed her chart at 5:58. Not Delgado. Rena Diaz. Psych hold." Her words came quick and flat, like she'd rehearsed saying nothing and had run out of room. "No psych consult ever ordered. Dr. Mercer signed transport authorization himself." "Destination?" "I didn't see final destination." She slid something from her pocket and let it drop by his boot like litter. "I never spoke to you." She walked off without waiting. Trey picked up the crumpled scrap, half of a transfer manifest carbon copy, torn through the middle. At the top, Bay Haven Regional Non-Emergent Transport. At the bottom, in smudged blue ink, receiving facility line overwritten with 3 letters before crossing out. L.K.E. Lake. Mako pulled again, nose now chasing residual, where the transfer vehicle had idled before turning out. Trey followed to his van, threw a map on the dash, and marked every private medical destination, with lake access within 30 miles. Only one matched the right direction and ownership profile he already hated. Lake Berenson Estates, Parcel 14B, held by a shell he recognized from Permitting Battles, Rourke Coastal Development. He drove with Mako braced in the rear crate, the dog vocalizing low every time they slowed. As Bay Haven gave way to pine stretches and New Money gates, Trey called in the address to the county line dispatch from a blocked number, reporting possible unlawful detention. The dispatcher took it in a tone that promised paperwork, not patrol cars. The estate road was crushed white limestone leading past manicured berms and imported palms that looked absurd against swamp pines. At the second gate, a matte black pickup blocked him before he reached the keypad. 2 men stepped out carrying rifles at low ready. Not quite legal, not quite deniable. Private security patches read Harbor Sentinel, a company with no website, and a lot of county contracts. No further, the bigger one said. I'm looking for a patient transferred from Bay Haven Regional this morning, Trey replied. Young woman, injured, witness in a felony. The guard's mouth twitched. You're trespassing. Trey held up the transfer slip piece without stepping closer. Then call the homeowner and tell him I'm here for Rosa Delgado. The second guard moved to Trey's passenger side, peered in, saw Mako's stare through crate bars, and shifted back half a step. You got a warrant? No, Trey said. You got an abducted witness? Safety clicked off on the big man's rifle, loud enough to be heard over cicadas. Leave, he said, or this becomes a threat call, and you lose more than your volunteer vest. Trey read the geometry. 2 shooters, elevated camera over gate, no legal cover, no backup coming. He memorized faces, vehicle plates, and the gate code smudges around the keypad. Then he backed down the drive and left at the same speed he'd entered. He made it 3 miles before his phone buzzed. Unknown number. Nice field trip to Berenson. A second text hit before he could block it. Unknown number. You should have stayed retired, Chief. By the time he reached his kennel road, smoke was already in the air. Not wildfire smoke. Plastic, fuel, insulation. He took the turn too hard, tires spitting gravel, and saw flame licking out of the old kennel van's engine compartment, where it sat beside the feed room. Fire had climbed into the dash and was rolling black under the awning. Mako exploded barking from the crate as Trey bailed out, grabbed the extinguisher from the post, and dumped powder into the wheel well until the first can went empty. He hit it with a second while dialing 911 on speaker. Dispatch put him on hold for 9 seconds. He got the fire mostly knocked down before volunteer engine crews arrived from 2 districts over. They sprayed foam, asked routine questions, and avoided eye contact when he said he had active threats related to the hit and run. One firefighter, older with union stickers on his helmet, leaned close while others packed hose. Start sleeping somewhere else tonight, he muttered. Heard chatter on scanner. They're calling you unstable and armed. Who's they? The firefighter gave the smallest shrug. People who don't use radios unless they own somebody. When they left, dusk was bruising the sky purple. The van was a charred shell, windshield blown, interior melted into a black trough. Somebody had jammed a road flare through the grill and likely used accelerant through the wheel well. Clean, quick, practiced. Trey stood in the wet gravel with extinguisher dust on his arms and felt anger try to spike into action. He forced it back down where discipline lived. Rage was useful for 3 seconds. Evidence was useful in court. He photographed everything, bagged the spent flare cap with nitrile gloves, and set a trail cam facing the access road. Then he took Mako inside the shipping container office, shut both steel doors, and called the one man whose opinion on fugitive behavior he still trusted. Deke Harlan answered on the second ring. "Tell me you're not on fire." "Too late," Trey said, watching security footage rewind on his monitor. "Need federal eyes. Names are Camden Rourke, Eli Mercer, Nolan Briggs. Connected hit and run, witness abduction, possible homicide. Local is cooked." Deke was quiet for a beat, keyboard clacking in the background. "I put feelers into Gulf Coast task channels after your call earlier. You weren't kidding about cooked. One of those kids bought forged travel documents 48 hours ago through a Pensacola broker we've been watching. 3 identities, 2 passports, 1 pilot services invoice. Route? Charter hop filed as med supply reposition from a private strip near Fort Walton to Mobile, then onward overland. Window says pre-dawn tomorrow if weather breaks. Could be a feint, but money moved. Who paid? Layered through an LLC tied to Rourke Holdings. Deke exhaled. You need to stop freelancing hero and start building chain of custody. You hear me? I hear you. Good. Because if you touch them wrong down there, every network lawyer will make you the criminal by lunch. After the call, Trey sat in the dark office and watched local news run another segment on him. This one used still photos from his gate confrontation, cropped so the rifles weren't visible. Caption: Former contractor harasses private residents. Comment threads did the rest. Crazy vet, loose cannon, attention seeker. Camden wanted him isolated and discredited before crossing a border. Fine. Ego was predictable. Trey opened his dormant social account, the one he used for K-9 placement posts and training tips, and recorded 30 seconds straight to camera. No rant, no threats, just his face, tired and steady. My name is Trey Walsh. I witnessed a black Escalade involved in a violent hit-and-run near Bay Haven docks. I identified 3 occupants. A witness named Rosa Delgado was assaulted and removed from Bay Haven Regional under false documentation. I am requesting state and federal intervention because local channels are compromised. Camden Rourke, if you're innocent, show up with counsel and answer questions. Running confirms guilt. He posted it to every platform he had and sent copies to 2 regional reporters who still owed him favors from search and rescue days. Then he went analog. Printed maps, fuel receipts, marina camera listings, private strip access roads, every choke point north within 2 hours. He emailed route predictions and timestamp windows to Deke using encrypted attachments, flagged as intelligence leads, not accusations. Complications stacked fast. At 2113, County Animal Services delivered a formal suspension notice taped to his gate. All volunteer K-9 deployment privileges revoked pending psychiatric review. At 2140, someone killed power to his outer lights from the road transformer. At 2205, a deputy cruiser rolled by, slowed, and kept going. No stop, just a look. At 2217, Mako stiffened and growled toward Run 3. Trey swept a red lens flashlight across the fence line and spotted raw meat chunks tossed near the kennel drains, glistening with blue-green granules. Rat poison. He bagged them, swore once under his breath, and moved every dog into interior crates with sealed water. When his burner vibrated at 2303, he almost ignored it. Unknown number. You still alive? He typed back, Who is this? A minute later, Rosa. Trey stared at the screen, then typed with controlled fingers. Prove it. Reply came instantly. You gave me your jacket in the culvert. Left pocket had a dog treat and a .223 casing. You said, "Can you stand?" He let out a breath he hadn't realized he was holding. "Where are you?" No location came. Instead, "Can't talk long." They moved me twice. I stole minutes on a maintenance tablet. Sending link. Download once. Don't open on hospital network. A URL followed, then a 6-digit key. Trey booted an offline laptop, tethered through a satellite hotspot he kept for storm outages, and accessed the link. Compressed file, 1.8 gigabytes. Folder names looked like billing exports, insurance reconciliations, trauma coding audits. Not what he expected from a terrified nursing student texting from hiding. He entered the key. Decryption churned. Inside were scanned invoices from Bayhaven Regional, shell company vendor lists, opioid settlement disbursement schedules, and spreadsheets with patient IDs that repeated across impossible procedures. Trauma admissions billed on dates patients were never admitted. Settlement funds routed into community redevelopment grants, then wired into Rourke Coastal subsidiaries. Mercer signatures. Briggs accounting approvals. Mercer again. There was also a video clip, 22 seconds, shaky and low light, dock area by slip 12, headlights, men shouting, the sound of impact and a body hitting metal, then water. A male voice Trey recognized from the SUV yelling, "Get him up, now, now." Another voice, calmer, likely Eli. "Phone. Get her phone." At the bottom of the folder sat one PDF titled courier_chain_note. He opened it, 3 paragraphs, apparently copied from a message thread between Eli and an unknown contact. References to ledger duplicates, state investigator meet, and dock rat courier. Final line? Accident solved courier issue. Retrieve secondary copies before dawn. Dock worker hadn't been random. He'd been carrying records. Trey felt the axis of the whole fight rotate under him. Up to now, he'd been chasing 3 rich idiots, covering a violent crime. This was infrastructure, money laundering, medical fraud, political capture, and now murder to protect it. Another message from Rosa popped up. Dock worker named Mateo Velez. Worked nights, unload fuel drums. He told me he had papers for Montgomery lady. They were waiting for him. Then, they said if I testified, Dr. Mercer can certify me unstable forever. Please don't come for me alone. They monitor roads. Her dot disappeared. Trey copied the full archive to 2 encrypted drives, sealed one in a Pelican case under concrete blocks, and uploaded the other through Deke's secure portal with a short note. Not local case anymore. Need state corruption. Plus witness protection now, eh? Deke called within 15 minutes. Voice all business. I ran a fast scrub on your files with our financial analyst. If this is genuine, and it looks genuine, you got predicate for racketeering plus healthcare fraud. Maybe homicide conspiracy. You need a prosecutor outside your county tonight. Name. State Corruption Unit Lead, Avery Caldwell, former AG trial chief. Doesn't scare easy. He texted a number. Use this once and assume it's burned. Trey stepped outside, rain starting again in a thin hiss across the gravel, and dialed. A woman answered on ring 4. Caldwell. Trey Walsh. I have evidence connecting Bayhaven Regional and Rourke Holdings to financial fraud and a vehicular homicide cover-up. Witness is alive but mobile and compromised. Who gave you this number? Deputy U.S. Marshal Derek Harlan. Pause. You have 10 seconds to convince me this isn't another conspiracy hobbyist. Trey gave her 10 minutes instead. Timeline, names, hospital transfer fraud, gate confrontation, arson, poisoned bait, and the files Rosa sent. He didn't embellish, didn't speculate beyond what he could attach. When he finished, Caldwell said, "Do not release any of those documents publicly. If defense can claim data tampering, we lose leverage. They're already manipulating local media. Then let them. Court beats comment sections." Paper rustled on her end. "I'm dispatching a digital forensics team from Montgomery under sealed authority. They'll meet you at a neutral site in 90 minutes. Bring originals, not copies, and keep your dog with you. You believe me?" "I believe math," she said. "And your billing ledgers don't lie." He met the team in a shuttered way station parking lot off Highway 87. 2 unmarked sedans, 1 forensic tech, 1 investigator, both state IDs verified twice before anyone touched a drive. Chain of custody forms passed under dome light while 18-wheelers groaned by in the rain. Mako sat in a downstay beside Trey's leg, eyes never leaving the dark tree line. At the end, Caldwell joined by secure video from a moving vehicle. Her face was grainy, voice crisp. "Mr. Walsh, this is now a state-federal parallel investigation. You are not to attempt contact rescues or vehicle interdictions. You are a material witness." "I can still predict where Camden runs," Trey said. "He won't use obvious lanes once he knows pressure shifted." Caldwell studied him for a second. "Send your route analysis to this address." She read out an encrypted inbox. "And Mr. Walsh?" "Yeah. You were right about local contamination. We've already had 1 leak from inside County Command within the last hour." She leaned closer to camera. "So here's what you need to know for dawn. We held 1 interdiction node outside that circle. Trooper Lena Shaw, K-9 certified. Border choke point near the way corridor. Clean badge, clean chain." Trey looked down at Mako, then back to the flickering screen. Caldwell finished. "If Camden tries to flee across state lines, Shaw and her dog Ajax will be waiting before he gets there." The call ended, and the parking lot seemed to get quieter, even with rain ticking on metal roofs. Trey signed the last chain of custody form, watched the forensic tech lock his drive into a hard case, and felt something he hadn't felt in Bayhaven in a long time. Momentary structural support. Not safety, just structure. Names on paper, evidence with signatures, a line that might hold in court. Then his pocket buzzed with a motion alert from the trail cam at his kennel gate. He opened the feed. White headlights, county vehicles, animal services truck, a deputy cruiser, another SUV with no markings and blacked-out windows. He was already moving before he finished swearing. By the time he hit Anchorline Road, the place was lit up in rotating red and amber. 2 officers stood at his gate with bolt cutters and a clipboard. Inside the fence, 3 county animal control staff in rain slickers were setting catch poles and transport crates like they were running a hoarding seizure. Mako barked from inside the office container, deep and furious. Trey killed the engine and got out with empty hands visible. "Nobody touches my dogs." The deputy closest to him shifted his stance, not quite drawing, but ready to. "Mr. Walsh, county order." "County, step back." "What order?" Clipboard deputy held up pages inside a plastic sleeve. "Emergency quarantine and impound pending investigation of dangerous animal conditions and intentional poisoning hazards to neighboring properties." Trey stared at him. "Intentional poisoning hazards? Somebody threw poison over my fence?" "Tell it to the magistrate," the deputy said. "Anonymous complaint says you set bait traps and maintained aggressive, unlicensed working dogs after suspension." Trey looked past them and saw one of the animal control workers trying to noose Run 2 through the bars while the shepherd inside slammed the gate in panic. Years of board and train contracts, rescue rehabs, veteran placements, his entire operation, built invoice by invoice, sleepless night by sleepless night, being dismantled in rain by people reading from a script someone else had paid for. If those dogs get mishandled, you'll lose fingers, Trey said, voice flat. Put the poles away. I'll crate them myself. Not your call, said a new voice. The unmarked SUV door opened. Chief Halverson from Bayhaven PD stepped out in a golf rain jacket, not uniform, collar up, expression soft with practiced regret. Evening, Trey. Bad optics all around. Let's de-escalate. Trey's lip curled. You don't have jurisdiction here. Mutual aid agreement, Halverson said. Signed this afternoon. Of course it was. A county worker came out of the feed room carrying a banker's box of paper files. Another had his old desktop tower under one arm. Put that down, Trey snapped. Halverson spread his hands. Potential evidence of unlawful kennel operations. Those are medical records for placement dogs. Halverson's eyes never changed. Then they'll be returned after review. Behind Trey, glass exploded. A round punched through the office container window and buried in the cinder block wall where his desk had been an hour earlier. Everyone hit instinctive cover. One deputy shouted, another drew and spun toward the tree line. Mako went feral inside, hurling himself at the crate door. Shot fired! South berm! Somebody yelled. For 3 chaotic seconds, nobody was in charge. Then Halverson crouched behind a truck tire and shouted, All units hold! Could be ricochet! Ricochet. From what, the sky? Trey kept low and scanned the dark beyond the fence. No muzzle flash now, no second shot. Professional shooter, 1 round, message delivered. By the time deputies pushed a perimeter sweep into the pines, whoever fired was gone. The search returned nothing, just wet branches and tire ruts that would wash out before dawn. Halverson stood, brushed rain off his sleeve, and said to nobody in particular, given active threat conditions, impound proceeds, expedite. It was elegant in a sick way. Stripped Trey's operation under legal color while the shot reframed him as a magnet for violence. If Camden's side could brand the kennel a danger site, they could seize dogs, records, property access, and if Trey pushed back wrong, jail him before dawn. He forced himself to breathe and made a call to the only emergency vet still open overnight. Then he stepped inside his own gate and, under armed supervision, loaded every dog himself. Calm voice, clean commands, no panic. One by one they entered crates, trembling, confused, trusting him anyway. Mako came last, vibrating with protective fury, until Trey put a hand on his neck and said, Easy, brother. With me. A deputy snapped photos of Trey leading him out, like evidence for a headline already written. When the last transport truck pulled away, the kennel lot looked gutted, runs empty, doors hanging, feed bins open, rainwater pooling where bowls had been. Halverson gave him a thin nod and left without another word. Trey stood in mud and taillight glare, and understood exactly what Camden's side was betting. Strip him of tools, credibility, shelter, dog, data, then push him into one bad decision on camera. Case over. Crazy vet narrative confirmed. His burner vibrated. Rosa. They're moving me again. I can slip out 140. Old ice plant off Berenson feeder. 12 minutes only. His thumb hovered. He sent it straight to Caldwell's secure address, plus Deke, plus 1 line, possible extraction window. Leak risk high. Caldwell replied in less than a minute. Do not approach alone. State team en route. He typed back, copy. And for once, he meant to obey. He made it 15 minutes down Highway 87 before Mako started whining in a way Trey had never heard. not alert. Pain. Trey pulled over under a dead billboard and opened the rear door. Mako's gums were pale. Saliva roped from his mouth. His hind legs trembled when he tried to stand, then buckled. No, no, no. Trey checked the dog's mouth, paws, vest. No obvious wound. Then he remembered the poisoned meat by Run 3, and the tiny moment earlier when Mako had snapped up something near the drain before Trey corrected him. A second, at most. Enough. Rat poison didn't need much. He drove like a man trying to outrun chemistry. Hazards on, one hand reaching back between seats every few seconds to keep contact on Mako's shoulder. The emergency vet took them through a side bay at 0:58. Techs move fast, IV line in, clotting panel, vitamin K protocol. A young vet with tired eyes looked at Trey over her mask and said, "We're seeing internal bleed markers. We can stabilize, but I need consent for plasma if he crashes." "Do it." "You should understand, prognosis is guarded the first 6 hours." Trey signed everything she put in front of him with hands that barely looked like his. His phone buzzed 3 times while he scrubbed blood off his fingers in a stainless sink. 0059, Caldwell, team at Ice Plant Perimeter, 0107, Deke. Radio silence from team lead, trying alternate channel. 112, unknown encrypted ID, contact burned, ambush, 1 down, witness not acquired. He stared at the message until the letters stopped being letters. Not acquired. He called Caldwell. Straight to secure queue. Called again. Third try, connected to road noise and someone barking orders in the background. "Walsh." "I have 30 seconds, Caldwell said. "What happened?" "Your extraction point was compromised before my team arrived. 2 shooters, night optics, suppressors. 1 investigator critical. 1 suspect deceased. Identity pending. Witness not found. Rosa. Unknown." A pause. "This is what a leak looks like." He leaned against the wall, eyes closed. "I sent location to 3 people." "So did someone on my side after that, apparently," she snapped, then dropped her voice. "Listen carefully. You did the right thing not going in blind. If you'd been there, you'd likely be dead. Dead maybe, but not standing in a hallway while other people bled." Caldwell continued. "I'm narrowing operation access to a 2-person cell, plus me. No county relay, no standard dispatch routes. Until we reestablish witness status, this shifts to interdiction and financial seizure prep." The call cut. Trey went back to ICU kennel and sat on the floor beside Mako's Run, while plasma dripped through a line into the dog's leg. Mako's eyes tracked him, cloudy but aware. Trey put 2 fingers through the bars. Mako pressed his muzzle there and stayed. "I should have caught it," Trey said softly. "I should have caught all of it sooner." The vet found him an hour later with his back against the wall and his head tipped forward, not asleep, just emptied out. "He's holding," she said. "That's all I can promise right now." Holding. Another fragile verb. At 2:41, Trey left Mako in critical care and drove north in a borrowed F-150 Deke had arranged through a marshal contact. Rain thickened again as he approached the borderway corridor. Blue strobes pulsed under the overpass where state units had staged low profile, no county insignia. Trooper Lena Shaw stood by her cruiser with Ajax at heel, both of them rain-dark and still. She looked like she'd been carved out of the weather, jaw set, shoulders squared, eyes tracking every vehicle that passed as if it might decide to kill somebody. "Trey Walsh," she said when he approached, not a question. "Trooper?" Her gaze flicked to the empty space at his side. "Where's your dog?" "Emergency vet. Poison." Something moved in her expression then, quick and private. She nodded once and gestured to the open rear hatch of her cruiser where maps, tablets, and a thermal drone case were laid out. Caldwell sent your route model. I integrated it with current closures. If Camden runs, he has 3 viable corridors unless he burns through median barriers. Ajax leaned into Lena's leg. She rested a hand on his head without looking down. For a while they worked in clipped terms. Mile markers, frontage merges, camera blind spots, functional language over rising dread. Then one of the younger troopers jogged over to report an overturned shrimp truck southbound, probable diversion. Lena reassigned him, waited until he was out of earshot, then said quietly, "You look like you're trying not to come apart." Trey gave a humorless smile. "I'm doing great. Don't." The word landed harder than he expected. Lena shut the hatch halfway, creating a little pocket of noise-dampened space between them and the road. Rain drummed overhead. "When I was with Mobile County," she said, eyes on the wet asphalt, "I had a K9 named Rook. Best dog I ever handled. We hit a stash house on a warrant fed to us by a detective everybody trusted. House looked cold, empty. I sent Rook first." She swallowed once. "It was fentanyl and bleach traps. He inhaled enough in the first room to seize before I got Narcan into him. We saved him that day. I pushed him back to work 6 weeks later because command was short, and I told myself he was fine." Her voice frayed at the edges. "He collapsed on a track 3 months later, lungs scarred. I signed the euthanasia form with his head in my lap." Trey didn't speak. "The detective who fed that warrant was dirty," she went on. "He leaked witness movement to a cartel courier ring. 3 civilians died over 8 months because we kept trusting his intel. I testified, and they transferred me to the state line because nobody wants a whistleblower in the building." She finally looked at Trey. "So when people call me steady, that's not who I am. Steady is what I perform so nobody else gets killed on my watch." Ajax nudged her hand. She gripped his collar lightly, knuckles white. "I don't want your pity," she said. "I want you to understand why I keep telling you not to freelance. You lose your dog, your kennel, your witness contact, and you still came here instead of storming a gate. That matters." He let that sit between them. "I almost ignored Caldwell and went to the ice plant," he admitted. "If I had, I'd have led them straight to me or died in a drainage ditch. Yeah. Rosa might be dead anyway." Lena's jaw tightened. "Unknown is not dead. Unknown is hell. But it's not dead." For the first time that night, Trey believed she wasn't reciting policy. She was bargaining with ghosts of her own. Her radio cracked with overlapping dispatch traffic. Multi-vehicle collision eastbound, unknown injuries, units requested. Another voice cut in, reporting a boat fire near Perdido Cut. Then a third call. School bus mechanical hazard. Children on board, immediate response needed. Too much, too fast. Lena and Trey looked at each other at the same moment. "Diversion stack," he said. "Yep." A sergeant on Channel 1 started reassigning state units toward the wrecks. Lena keyed in. "Unit 12 stays at Choke, per corruption task directive." The sergeant came back sharp. "Negative, Shaw. We need all available. You can run rolling patrol." She didn't answer immediately. Her fingers tapped once on the mic housing. Old hesitation, old command pressure, trying to force compliance. Then she clicked transmit. "Negative. Holding node. Any further override goes through Prosecutor Caldwell by name." Silence. Then a tight, angry, "Copy." Trey exhaled. "That just bought you enemies." "I already had them." At 3:26, Deke called Trey direct. No greeting. "Camden's charter paperwork was a smoke bomb," he said. Pilot never showed. Plane never fueled. Real move just lit up. Stolen private ambulance out of Bayhaven Industrial Yard. Cloned EMS transponder. Heading north with lights active. Trey was already moving toward the truck. Occupants? At least one male driver. 2 additional pings from known associates, split opposite directions 5 minutes ago. They're throwing decoys. Lena heard enough from Trey's side to snap into motion. Ajax, load! The Malinois vaulted into the cruiser. Lena keyed her radio and her voice became iron. All units, be advised, suspect vehicle, likely impersonating EMS. Do not auto-clear traffic lanes without visual confirmation. Repeat, do not auto-clear... Her channel got stepped on by county dispatch, screaming about a tanker rollover and trapped motorists. Trey's phone chimed with a traffic cam, still Deke pushed through. An ambulance with grill damage and fresh white paint over old lettering, punching through red lights on Highway 98 while civilian cars scattered. Not a medical run. A battering ram with sirens. He climbed into the borrowed truck. Lena was in her seat, engine hot. Ajax braced behind the partition, eyes bright. If they pull everyone to the fake Rex, he gets a clean corridor, Trey said. Then we don't give him one. She looked at him once through rain-streaked glass, vulnerable moment gone, command face back on. Frontage road puts you parallel at mile 214, she said. No hero stop. You see him, you call me, and keep distance. He nodded. They rolled out in opposite directions under the overpass lights, rain swallowing their taillights almost immediately. Behind them, dispatch channels dissolved into layered panic as more accidents came in. Ahead, somewhere in the dark pines and industrial cut-throughs, a stolen ambulance was running for the state line with every honest unit it could spare, dragged the wrong way. At mile marker 211, Trey caught the first flash of white strobes ghosting between tree trunks where no ambulance route should have been, moving too fast, exactly on the angle he'd marked in red pencil hours earlier. He grabbed the radio mic and said, Lena, he's on the frontage. He's coming to you now. Then the signal broke into static. He grabbed the radio mic and said, Lena, he's on the frontage. He's coming to you now. Then the signal broke into static. For half a second, Trey heard nothing but hiss and his own pulse. Then a weak carrier tone snapped back. Copy last. Say again. He's off official route, Trey barked. Frontage, northbound. No siren now. Lights cycling. He's dark between flashes. Copy. Lena's voice sharpened into command steel. Unit 12, repositioning to Way 2 exit. Ajax, deploy ready. Keep distance, Walsh. Do not force contact. Trey swung the borrowed truck onto the gravel shoulder road that paralleled the frontage, pines whipping past in strobing white-blue flashes from the ambulance ahead. Rain turned the ruts into slurry. Twice he fishtailed and corrected on instinct, left hand light, right hand steady on the wheel. The stolen ambulance appeared fully for the first time as it cut across a drainage apron. White body, old county decals sanded and painted over, rear doors chained, grill crushed, one headlamp out. It was running on urgency and bad decisions. Lena came back on the air. Visual on suspect. Traffic gate dropping now. At the border way station, electronic arms began lowering across the right 2 lanes. Trucks already in queue blared horns as troopers in reflective shells waved civilians behind concrete barriers. Lena's cruiser angled hard across the remaining lane, Ajax barking behind the partition, front paws on the cage. Camden didn't brake. Impact likely, Trey said. Stand by. Lena waited 1 beat longer than anyone else would have dared, long enough to be certain no minivan was trapped in the kill lane, then hit the trigger for the concealed spike strip buried just ahead of the scale pad. The ambulance struck it at 70, Both front tires detonated in quick, violent pops. The vehicle yawed left, slammed the curb, sheared a signpost, and spun broadside into the gravel runoff. Steam and smoke burst from under the hood. One rear door flew partly open against the chain and slammed shut again. Trey was out of his truck before it stopped rolling. "Hands! Show me your hands!" Driver door kicked open. Camden Rourke stumbled out in stolen EMT pants and a blood-smeared hoodie, hair plastered to his forehead, eyes wild and furious, not drunk now, just cornered. He saw Trey and bared his teeth. "You," Camden said, like it was a personal insult that Trey kept existing. Passenger side opened a heartbeat later, and Eli Mercer came out lower, calmer, clutching a black medical case that wasn't medical. He looked at the roadblock, the troopers, the drones lifting, and made a fast calculation. "Cam, ditched north," Eli shouted. "Plan C." From somewhere behind the way station came a second engine revving hard. Nolan's lifted pickup, mud-caked and missing a plate, burst through a service gap and barreled toward the scene, trying to punch a hole through the containment line. Lena pivoted, pointed. "Unit 17, intercept that truck. Non-lethal if able. Walsh, off the lane." Nolan clipped a portable barrier, bounced, corrected, and tore past with one trooper in pursuit. Diversion inside diversion. Eli used that 1-second distraction to run. Camden ran too, straight for the tree line beyond the runoff ditch, where pines dropped toward a black ribbon of river. Lena made her choice instantly. "Ajax! Track! Voran!" She popped the rear door, and Ajax launched like a thrown spear, leash trailing, chest low, nose snapping to Camden's scent, where he'd slid in mud. Lena followed, sidearm up, but indexed, not firing blind through brush. Trey cut right to angle off Camden's escape. He heard Eli crashing left through scrub and keyed his mic. "Second suspect heading west side culvert." "Copy," Lena said, breath controlled even at a run. "I have primary." Branches slapped Trey's face as he moved downslope. Ahead, Camden splashed through shin-deep water and scrambled up the far bank, slipping. Ajax gained 10 feet in seconds, silent now, locked in. Camden looked back, saw the dog, and did what entitled men did when the world finally told them no. He panicked and reached for a weapon he thought would restore order. He yanked a compact pistol from behind his back and swung it one-handed toward the movement behind him, toward Trey breaking through brush. "Gun!" Trey shouted. Lena's voice cracked the trees. "Drop it! Drop it now!" Camden fired once while. Muzzle flash blew orange in the rain. The shot snapped bark over Trey's shoulder. Ajax hit him mid-turn. The Malinois struck high and hard, jaws locking into Camden's forearm, driving him face first into mud with a sound like wet canvas dropping. The pistol flew, skidded, stopped against a root. Camden screamed and tried to punch the dog with his free hand. Ajax held, growling deep, weight centered, exactly as trained. "Don't move!" Lena closed distance, weapon trained. "Camden Rourke, you are under arrest. Stop resisting." Camden spat mud and blood. "My father will bury you. You have no—" He twisted under Ajax and made another blind grab toward where the pistol had landed. Trey moved then, one controlled step in, heel pinning Camden's wrist, right hand stripping the gun and clearing the chamber in one practice sequence. He kicked the weapon back to Lena, then backed out with palms open. No extra force, no headline. "Weapon secure," he said. Lena gave a short whistle. "Ajax aus." Ajax released on command and snapped back to heel, chest heaving, eyes still fixed on Camden. Lena cuffed Camden herself, knee in his shoulder, ratchets clicking tight over shaking hands. Above them, sirens multiplied. State units, not county. In the distance, near the way lane, 2 sharp cracks echoed. Gunfire, farther west where Eli had run. Trey looked at Lena. "Eli." She nodded, already keying her radio. Primary in custody. K9 successful contact. Moving to secondary suspect at West Culvert. Medical to Pine Sector now. They dragged Camden uphill between them. He fought every step, screaming threats, legal jargon, names of judges, names of donors, names of men who had answered his family's calls for 20 years. No one stopped. By the time they reached the runoff lane, Nolan's pickup sat nose down in a drainage ditch, airbags blown. He was prone in handcuffs under a trooper's knee, cursing through a broken nose. Eli was nowhere in sight. Then somebody shouted from the disabled ambulance. "We got a live one in back." Trey and Lena both turned. Bolt cutters bit through the chain. Rear doors swung open. Inside, zip-tied to a gurney under a gray blanket. Face bruised, IV taped but disconnected, eyes swollen nearly shut. Rosa Delgado blinked into the floodlights and tried to speak through duct tape. Trey climbed in, hands suddenly less steady than they'd been around bullets. He peeled tape gently, cut restraints. "You're okay," he said. "You're okay?" Rosa swallowed, voice shredded. "Eli, river path, phone in his jacket. Don't let him dump it." Lena was already running. The West Culvert emptied into a marshy bend where stormwater drains met the river. Eli Mercer knew enough terrain to pick water over road, enough law to know digital evidence died quickest in mud. He was knee-deep in black water when Lena found him, one hand on an embankment rope, the other trying to smash a phone under his boot heel. He heard her and straightened with a breathless smile that looked too much like his father's. "Trooper Shaw," he called. "Perfect timing. I was rendering aid. Those maniacs abducted me. Hands where I can see them." He raised one hand. The other flicked something into the water, small, metallic. Lena fired a warning round into the mudbank inches from his knee. "Both hands. Now." He froze, then slowly lifted both palms. "You just discharged without probable threat. That's a career-ending report. Turn around." "You have any idea who signs your grant renewals?" Eli said softly. "My father can have your cert pulled by noon. You think this county ever protects people like you? You'll be the unstable one by breakfast." Lena took 2 steps forward, muzzle unwavering. "I already buried one dog because I trusted men like you. I'm not burying this case, too." Eli's eyes flicked past her shoulder. Escape math again. He lunged sideways for the rope line. Ajax hit him from flank before he got half a step. Unlike Camden's impact takedown, this one was surgical. Bite to thigh, rotational pull, drop. Eli shrieked and went under in the shallows, hands flailing. Lena holstered, waded in, and cuffed him while Ajax held, then released on command. She patted Eli down and found 2 burner phones, a flash drive taped inside his belt, and a folded passport under a fake name sealed in plastic. From the bank, Trey shouted, "He tossed something." Lena scanned the water, saw a tiny blinking diode sinking beside the culvert mouth, and plunged her gloved hand in up to the elbow. She came up with a waterproof key fob drive, slick with silt. Eli stopped pretending then. He sagged against the mud and started laughing breathlessly. "You really think this ends with us?" he said. "You have no idea how many signatures this has." Lena zip-tied his ankles for transport. "Good," she said. "I brought enough cuffs." They hauled him to dry ground where marshals and state investigators converged, lights painting the trees red and blue. Deke Harlan stepped out of an unmarked Tahoe, took one look at Trey, then at the 3 cuffed heirs lined against separate bumpers, and gave the smallest nod of professional satisfaction. Camden was still shouting. Nolan had gone pale and quiet. Eli stared at the mud on his ruined shoes like he couldn't process that matter existed outside boardrooms. Caldwell arrived minutes later in a raincoat over courtroom black, no umbrella, tablet in hand. She moved station to station like a conductor taking inventory. Suspects, weapons, devices, victim recovered alive, K-9 deployments logged, chain of custody initiated on scene. When she reached Trey, she said, "You followed instructions." "Mostly. Good enough." She looked past him to Lena. "Trooper Shaw, textbook interdiction under contaminated conditions. I'm putting that in writing before anyone can edit it." Lena's shoulders dropped a fraction, first sign the adrenaline was burning out. EMTs loaded Rosa into a real ambulance this time. She caught Trey's sleeve as they lifted. "Mateo's ledger," she whispered. "Blue locker. Slip 12 bait shed. Key taped under fourth plank." "I heard you," Trey said. "You did good." Her fingers tightened once, then released. As the doors closed, Camden screamed from 20 feet away, "Rosa! You lie, you disappear!" 3 marshals shoved him face first against the hood and cinched his cuffs tighter. He finally went quiet when Deke read him federal warning language in a voice like concrete. The rain eased near dawn. In the gray light, with Ajax sitting blood-muzzled, but steady at Lena's heel, and the 3 men who had treated Bayhaven like inherited property, now chained for transport, the line finally held. By sunrise, the way station looked like an evidence fairground. Numbered flags, forensic tents, photographers in boot covers, prosecutors with clipboards speaking in quiet bursts. Crisis had shifted to process. Trey stood by the guardrail with a paper cup of burnt coffee he hadn't tasted. Mud dried on his jeans in cracked streaks. His hands had started shaking 10 minutes earlier, not from fear now, but from the system dumping adrenaline it no longer needed. Deke joined him, passing over a phone. "Vet." Trey took it fast. "Yeah?" The vet's tired voice came through static and freeway noise. "Mr. Walsh, Mako made it through the critical window. Clotting numbers are improving. He's not out of danger, but he's responsive and trying to bite my texts, so I'd call that a positive." Trey closed his eyes. "Thank you." When he handed the phone back, Lena was walking toward him with Ajax on leash and a white bandage wrap around her own left forearm he hadn't noticed before. "You hit?" he asked. "Briar's an ego," she said. "Ajax got the better war story." Ajax bumped Trey's knee once, dogged to handle her acknowledgement from one professional to another. Trey scratched behind his ear. "Good work, partner." Caldwell called them both to the back of a mobile command van. Inside, monitors showed live pulls from seized phones, GPS tracks overlaying the diversion wrecks, transaction logs already flagged by forensic accountants. "We're unsealing a federal complaint this morning," Caldwell said. "Vehicular homicide tied to Mateo Velez, kidnapping of Rosa Delgado, witness intimidation, arson, attempted murder, healthcare fraud, wire fraud, racketeering conspiracy. We roll arrests on associated adults before lunch." "Halverson?" Trey asked. "On administrative hold pending obstruction review. Judge signed warrant at 5:12. Her mouth tightened. "Your deputy friend at the substation gave us a statement, too. Quietly brave." Trey nodded, thinking of bloodshot eyes and mortgage fear. Caldwell turned to Lena. "Internal affairs will come for your radio decision. They'll say you defied dispatch and endangered response coverage." Lena shrugged, exhausted. "I did defy dispatch." "Good," Caldwell said. "I'll be in that room when they ask why." Outside, a marshal convoy departed with Camden, Eli, and Nolan in separate vehicles. Camden was still trying to shout into cameras. Nolan stared at the floor. Eli asked for a lawyer before the door even shut. Rosa was flown to a secure unit, under state guard, before any local administrator. could reroute her chart again. Trey watched the convoy disappear, then looked at Lena. "What now?" "Now," she said. "You sleep. Then you testify." 3 nights later, Rain returned to Bayhaven in long silver sheets. Trey sat in a plastic chair beside Mako's recovery run at the emergency clinic annex, reading subpoena paperwork under fluorescent hum. Mako lay with shaved foreleg and a cone he hated, eyes brighter each hour. At 22:14, the clinic door chimed. Lena stepped in out of the rain in jeans and a plain black hoodie, no uniform, hair damp at the temples. Ajax waited in her vehicle. She carried 2 coffees and a paper bag that smelled like fries. "Your vet said visiting hours were over," she said. "I told her I brought bribes." Trey took a cup. "You armed?" "Only with sodium." She held up the bag. He almost smiled, then didn't because she was looking at him with the kind of directness that stripped the room of distractions. "You disappeared after the arraignment," she said. "I was at the kennel lot, assessing damage." "You were avoiding me." He looked down at the coffee lid. "Maybe." Lena set her cup aside and sat across from him, knees almost touching. "Trey, I can run tactical grids and courtroom timelines all day. I can't read silence. If you're done with whatever this is between us, say it plain." He let out a breath that sounded like surrender. "I don't know what this is supposed to be. I know I check my phone for your name before I check case updates. I know when your radio dropped that night, I forgot to be careful. I know I'm 42, damaged, sleep-broken, and just got my life torched by people with better lawyers." Lena didn't look away. He went on, voice roughening. "I also know I've spent years training dogs because they're honest, and people are not. Then you stood in a storm and held that choke point while everyone screamed at you to fold. You trusted me when there was no reason to, and now I can't seem to put you back in a professional box." The clinic HVAC clicked on. Rain ticked softly against the glass. Mako huffed in his sleep. Lena swallowed, hands folded tight. "You think I'm not scared of this?" she said. "I spent 2 years telling myself attachments get people killed. Partners transfer. Informants disappear. Dogs die, so I keep everything compartmentalized and call it discipline." She laughed once, short and shaky. "Then you show up with mud on your boots and a moral code from another century. And suddenly I'm planning my shifts around whether you might need backup." He leaned back, stunned by the naked honesty. "I don't want halfway," Lena said. "I don't want one good night and then radio silence when things calm down. I want a life with someone who tells me the truth when it's ugly. Can you do that?" Trey answered without a pause. "Yes." She searched his face for a lie and found none. "Say it then," she whispered. He set the coffee down carefully. "I love you. Not crisis love. Not adrenaline. You. Your stubbornness. Your restraint. Your terrible gas station coffee standards. I love how you choose the hard right thing even when it costs. I love that you see me, all the parts, and stay." Lena's eyes filled before she could stop it. She wiped at one with the heel of her hand, annoyed at herself, then gave up and let the tears sit. "I love you too," she said. "I loved you somewhere between the way station map and you telling me to keep my dog behind cover. I just didn't trust it yet." He laughed softly, disbelieving. "We're doing this in a vet clinic. Where else would 2 canine idiots declare emotional bankruptcy?" He reached for her hand. She met him halfway, fingers threading tight like a promise under load. When she leaned in, the kiss was slow and certain. Not the frantic kind born of survival, but the deliberate kind that builds one. Mako made a low grumble from his run, cone thumping the gate. They broke apart, smiling despite themselves. Witness disapproves, Lena said. Witness gets extra meds. She rested her forehead against his. My lease is month to month. Ajax and I can stay there, or we could look at that spare room by your office container, once you rebuild. He nodded. Rebuild starts Monday. Stay. Good, she said, because I'm tired of driving home alone after storms. The courtroom in Montgomery smelled like polished wood and wet coats. Trey sat at counsel table beside Caldwell while cameras crowded the back row. Across the aisle, Camden, Eli, and Nolan stood in orange jail uniforms instead of tailored suits, wrists linked at the chain. Judge Hensley read the charge stack slowly, each count landing like a hammer. Camden tried to interrupt twice. The second time, the judge said, Mr. Rourke, this isn't your father's board meeting. And the room went very still. In the witness room afterward, Rosa Delgado gave sworn testimony through a secure video link, voice steadier than Trey had heard it yet. She identified all three men. She described the dock, the impact, the beating, the false chart, the chained ambulance. She did not look away. When it was over, she asked if Trey could come in. A marshal checked clearance, then waved him through. Rosa looked small in the oversized chair, but unbroken. I heard they found Mateo's locker, she said. We did, Trey sat. Ledgers matched your files. It holds. She nodded, then hesitated. There's something else. Mateo told me once he had an older brother in special teams. Different last name. Said his brother warned him about Bay Haven money and told him to keep copies in case he got burned. Trey frowned. Did he say the brother's name? Rosa closed her eyes, pulling memory through pain meds and trauma. Kane. Just Kane. The room tilted for a second. That evening, Deke met Trey and Lena at the half-rebuilt kennel lot, now stripped to studs and fresh concrete forms. Deke held a weathered manila packet with a chain of evidence sticker, and Trey's name in block handwriting he knew instantly. Kane mailed this certified 8 months before he died, Deke said. Postal trace shows delivery attempt, then reroute to a private box service owned by Briggs Logistics. It vanished. We found it yesterday in a seized records locker. Trey took it with both hands. Inside was a letter and a flash drive. The letter began, Chief, if this reaches you, assume they got to me first. Kane wrote that he'd been doing private maritime security work and stumbled onto laundering routes tied to opioid settlement funds, hospital billing fraud, and shell development projects in Bay Haven. He named Mercer, Rourke, Briggs. He named compromised local officials. He named one courier he trusted with duplicate ledgers in case he disappeared. My kid brother, Mateo Velez, mother's name. Last line. If I go down as an overdose, don't buy it. You're the one witness they can't recruit. Trey read it twice in the dark while thunder rolled offshore. Lena stepped close, hand at the center of his back. You were never random, she said quietly. No, Trey said. I was late. Deke shook his head. You were on time enough to finish it. A month later, Bay Haven voters packed the high school gym for a special recall. Trey stood in the back with Mako, now lean again, scar hidden under new fur, and Ajax at Lena's side. When the final tally flashed on the projector, Chief Halverson was out by 20 points. The oversight referendum for independent review of PD and Bay Haven Regional passed even wider. People who had stayed quiet for years clapped like they'd been holding breath. At first light on a different storm morning, Trey unlocked the gate of a new facility built on the old slab. Kane and Mateo K9, Service Center, painted in clean white letters over steel. Inside were wider runs, trauma-trained volunteers, and a classroom where veterans learned scent work before they learned to sleep again. Rosa visited under protection detail on opening day, wearing plain clothes and a badge from a nursing program in another county. She hugged Mako, cried into his neck, and laughed when he stole her glove. "Thank you for not giving up," she told Trey. "Same to you." That night, rain hammered the roof hard enough to rattle the vents, just like the night this started. Trey lay on a bunk in the office annex, one arm draped over the edge where Mako slept, breathing deep and even. On the other side of the room, Lena's boots sat beside the door, wet from late patrol, Ajax curled under her chair. The scanner murmured routine traffic, no panic, no stand-down orders spoken in fear. For the first time in years, when thunder rolled across the line between states, Trey didn't get up. He slept through the storm,